This is worse than we thought. The Ravens just got some brutal news out of that joint practice with the Vikings, and Danny Pinter suffered a torn patellar tendon, and his 2026 season is expected to be over. And this really hurts because he wasn't just competing for a roster spot. He had a legitimate chance to be a Baltimore starting center with the loss of Tyler Linderbaum in free agency to the Raiders. So we're going to talk about what happened, what this means for the actual center competition for the Baltimore Ravens, and then we're going to get into what we saw during that joint practice segment with the Minnesota Vikings. But before we get into today's video, you guys are going to want to make sure to subscribe to Ravens Digest. 70% of you guys are not subscribed. It is completely free, no cost, no price, and we're providing daily Baltimore Ravens videos, updates throughout the entire season and throughout the postseason. You guys are not going to want to miss out on any of the content we are providing, and we are so close to hitting 2,000 subscribers. We're currently at 1.3K. We appreciate all the support from Flock Nation. Keep hitting that subscribe button. It truly means a lot. But talking about Danny Pinter and the situation at hand with the injury to Danny Pinter, his season is likely over, and it is pretty brutal for the season to start like this because he suffered a torn patellar tendon during Wednesday's practice, and the injury is expected for him to miss the entire 2026 season. And he went down on an 11-on-11 play, and he got rolled up at the end of this play specifically, with him needing to be carted off and needing a brace on his right leg. Teammates gathered around him, took a knee, and prayed for him, and you could immediately tell that it was a pretty serious situation. And it's really frustrating when you look at what Pinter has actually done to earn the opportunity for the Baltimore Ravens to compete within this center room. Because yes, Tyler Linderbaum went to Las Vegas and had been a big loss for the Baltimore Ravens, but Danny Pinter had a legitimate piece and a chance to be the biggest unresolved competition piece for the Baltimore Ravens within that center room. And he started the preseason opener against Philadelphia, and he was also taking most of the first team reps during training camp. So he had a legitimate chance to be the starter for the Baltimore Ravens, and now that is completely gone, and it is definitely a tough situation for Baltimore Ravens fans to swallow. But now, what is next? What changes this situation for the Baltimore Ravens center competition as a whole? And the next man up, and the obvious name, is Ethan Pocic. Ethan Pocic has the experience. He's played a lot of NFL football in this league, and the Baltimore Ravens brought him in knowing that they needed the competition at this position. But the problem is he's coming off of that torn Achilles in last December, and yes, Baltimore has already started to ramp up the workload for Ethan Pocic this week, and now that plan is even more important when Danny Pinter is going down with an injury that looks like it will take him out for the majority of the next season. But the Baltimore Ravens also have another center who has been fighting for these opportunities in Jovaughn Gwyn, and Jovaughn Gwyn has been doing a really good job to show the coaching staff what he can really bring, because when Pinter went down with this injury during the joint practice, he immediately opened up a massive hole in the middle of the Vikings defense, and Derrick Henry ran right through that lane and had a really good rep. And this wasn't just a really good rep for Jovaughn Gwyn as a whole, he's also a player who could really grab the coach's attention with these second man opportunities and really turn them into a great opportunity for a starting position fight. But Jesse Minter already talked about what he really liked about Jovaughn Gwyn during that case against the Philadelphia Eagles, and he said he really played well in that preseason opener, and he finished with one of the highest Pro Football Focus grades during the offensive players of that entire game. And he was praised on his power, his athleticism, and now this three-man competition is potentially moving to a two-man competition with him and Ethan Pocic all fighting for that starting spot. And yes, this is a massive opportunity within that center room for him. As we know, Pocic has the experience and Gwyn has the momentum from the coaching staff, and the Baltimore Ravens will have to evaluate both of these players. But over the next couple of weeks, it is really going to tell us a lot about both of these players. And if Pocic can get back to full speed while Gwyn continues to keep playing like this, Baltimore might have a legit competition on its hands despite losing Danny Pinter for the rest of the season. But during the actual joint practice, the Baltimore Ravens had a very efficient day, but the defense really started the practice with a very efficient couple of reps. The defense, even though they lost Pinter, the defense really gave them reasons to feel good. And Jesse Minter said that the defense won at the line of scrimmage multiple different plays in a row, and he liked the way that they handled their run fits. He really liked the physicality, and he liked the coverages that they were providing. The defense was really flying around. And yes, that preseason game against the Philadelphia Eagles was a great start, with Philadelphia only being held to 159 yards, and then us taking that mentality straight to this joint practice against the Minnesota Vikings. This is exactly what you want to see out of Anthony Weaver, the newest defensive coordinator, and Jesse Minter bringing in that new coaching mindset to a new organization that is his first year being a part of. And yes, when we talk about the Baltimore Ravens defense as a whole, we know that cornerback room is very important for the Baltimore Ravens, and one of the matchups to watch over these joint practices was Nate Wiggins versus Nate Wiggins versus Justin Jefferson. And this was one of my favorite parts of the entire practice. And Justin Jefferson did make a whole lot of plays. Of course he did. He is Justin Jefferson. He made a very impressive catch over Nate Wiggins. And we also saw some clips of him having impressive route running skills. But this is what I liked about Nate Wiggins going against one of the best receivers in the NFL. On the very next play, he responded. He broke up a deep pass against Jordan Addison, another number 2 receiver in the league who was really good. And this is exactly what you want to see from a young corner in Nate Wiggins. You're going up against one of the best receivers in football. You know this. If you give up a play, you don't let it affect you on the next rep. And Wiggins is arguably Baltimore's best player throughout the entire practice and hoping to be one of the best pieces going into the entire regular season. And after all of the injury concern early in camp, it is really good to see him compete, and we're glad that he is looking and moving back at the fullest extent. But another corner for the Baltimore Ravens we can always talk about in him being productive is Marlon Humphrey, and he had a really good day as well. He recorded a sack on a blitz, had multiple pass breakups, and one of them came against Justin Jefferson. And this is something I really like about the Baltimore Ravens defense. They create pressure in multiple different ways, and if you see these safeties coming downhill, it is really something. And also the defensive line is flying to get to the backfield. And Jesse Minter and Anthony Weaver just find different ways to attack NFL offenses, and this is really impressive, especially that Minter is doing some of the play calling on the defensive side of the ball. And with that defense, there's also younger guys who are really stepping up on a play-to-play basis. And over the past of preseason, of course, moving into what we saw over training camp and over the course of that early joint practice, Keon Martin and Keandre Jackson are 2 cornerbacks who are really making them impossible to ignore in terms of that depth spot, because Keon Martin and Keandre Jackson are both extremely active players, and Martin forced an incompletion on a 3rd down and made Kyler Murray throw the ball away on another play, and Jackson really made his presence felt on special teams as well. But of course, things did get a little heated towards the back half of the practice. Him and another corner of the Vikings got tangled up during a special teams drill. They took exception to it, a little bit of a shoving back between the two, with both of them not wanting to let go of each other. And this is really what happens during these joint practices. Things can always get a bit turned up. You saw it in the Saints joint practice over the past week or so as well. But Jesse Minter always makes it clear that he doesn't want his players to do anything in a practice that could get them tossed out of a regular season game, because that could affect the Baltimore Ravens in a big way. So keeping that edge while being disciplined in terms of the flags is very important for the Baltimore Ravens, and something that Jesse Minter wants to bring into the Baltimore Ravens coaching mindset. But as well as the defensive backs, the defensive front and the edge rushers definitely had a day, and Zion Young is a player for the Baltimore Ravens who has really gave us some strong pass rush reps. And this really stood out to me because Baltimore wasn't just winning because of Zion Young. It was a collective effort between him, Trey Hendrickson, and the other members of the defensive line like Broderick Washington, and the defensive line was disrupting things. The linebackers are flying around. We know that Roquan Smith is a capitalist for us, and having all of these guys healthy and flying around and making plays, this is how you really build a defense that can travel and be something that can go against the Patrick Mahomes and the Josh Allens in the regular season. But the Baltimore Ravens didn't have a great time fully against that defense, because Brian Flores is one of the best defensive coordinators in the entire NFL. And for the Minnesota Vikings, the Ravens offense had a much tougher day. Jesse Minter said it himself, nobody probably pressures more in the league than Flo. And Flores is one of the best coordinators in the league, because he was bringing pressure to Lamar Jackson, and there were multiple sacks, including sacks from Dallas Turner and Andrew Van Ginkel. And this is exactly why these practices are valuable. Baltimore doesn't need to be perfect in August. We need to expose these problems that are currently happening within the team and fix them and adjust towards them before September. And the Baltimore Ravens know that they cannot be creating these penalties and these issues into the post-snap thing. And Brian Flores is a defensive coordinator who will try and throw several different things at you, disguises, to make the Baltimore Ravens offense second guess what they are trying to execute. The Baltimore Ravens and their offense, as we know, it all starts with Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson in the 2-minute drill wasn't that great either because he had a first down with Mark Andrews, but then the pressure really started to affect him from the defensive side and what Brian Flores was really trying to implement. A false start also prevented Tyler Huntley and the offense when Lamar Jackson wasn't in those reps, and eventually Tyler Huntley also got sacked to end practice. So no, this wasn't a perfect day for the Baltimore Ravens offense at all, but that's okay. This is exactly what these joint practices are about and what you want to see. And with the new Declan Doyle system, and it's going against a Brian Flores defense that is really, really efficient, you want to see where these problems lie, whether it's the offensive line, whether it's the coverages, things of this nature, to really adjust and fix these things before the regular season. But in terms of that offensive line, a player who has really still been able to have a very productive training camp and rookie mini camp is Vega Iona. And through this, Vega Iona had some really good pass blocking reps against these Vikings defensive linemen such as Caleb Banks. And the pressure didn't really appear to be coming from Vega's side. And for a rookie guard who is stepping into a new spot, this is something that is really worth watching. And I'm very excited to see what Vega Iona does in the regular season. But that receiving core for the Baltimore Ravens, especially the younger, is always producing. And it all starts with Jacoby Lane and Elijah Surratt, two of my favorite young players in the Baltimore Ravens roster right now. And Jacoby Lane had a very, very strong day with another win on a one-on-one rep with a deep catch down the sideline. And Elijah Surratt also had a very strong day making tough catches and creating separation. And this isn't just a trend, and it's not just a trend on a play-to-play basis. They're not just doing this based on what they did in college. I believe both of these guys are young receivers for the Baltimore Ravens who are really taking that next step to being used for the Baltimore Ravens on a play-to-play basis, especially Jacoby Lane with his catch radius and that ability. And it seems he's had a lot of team bonding with the Baltimore Ravens, with him going on a roller coaster, with Zay Flowers and Lamar Jackson, with the regular season getting closer. These reps are really important, and I'm loving the connections and the bonding that is being created within the Baltimore Ravens in this wide receiver room. But what does this really mean for the Baltimore Ravens as a whole? With the injury, with these joint practices, what does it all mean together? I believe it is two different stories. And first, the obvious story is Danny Pinter's injury. It is a massive blow for the Baltimore Ravens, but the second story is the defense. The Baltimore Ravens defense looked really physical. Nate Wiggins was making plays along with Marlowe and Keon Martin, and the D-line was making it very difficult for Kyler Murray and the Vikings offense for the most of practice. But the next step for the Baltimore Ravens is the newer days. Another opportunity to see Ethan Pocic make that push, another opportunity for Jovaughn Gwyn to have a great practice, and another chance for Lamar Jackson to get work against one of the best defensive coordinators in the entire NFL in Brian Flores. But yes, Danny Pinter is obviously the toughest story and the worst part of the day. The torn patellar tendon is devastating, especially for a player who has worked towards having a starting role for the Baltimore Ravens this season. And honestly, with this, he needs to get healthy in terms of Ethan Pocic stepping up, and Jovaughn Gwyn has that opportunity. And this is exactly why these joint practices matter for the Baltimore Ravens, and exactly why I'm excited to see what happens going into the regular season. But let me know what you guys thought about the injury. It is definitely a very scary scene and a tough situation for the Baltimore Ravens. Do you think Ethan Pocic will win the competition, or will it be Jovaughn Gwyn? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. My name's Alassane, and if you enjoyed today's content, make sure you hit the subscribe button. It is completely free, no price, no cost at all, and we appreciate all the support from Flock Nation always. And until then, Ravens flock always.